Yes, so let's go there. All right, this is Diamond Hills. We just want to emphasize the fact to correct some erroneous beliefs going on in Nigeria that the people in the diaspora are the one pushing for the breakup of Nigeria. That is a lie from the pit of hell. Everybody is tired of what Buhari and his criminal gangs of Fulani extractions are doing. So this video is going to be all inclusive. I will speak, then I will connect to another person, a lawyer in Nigeria. I will show you his interview, how he vent his mind on what is happening in Nigeria, and that there is no alternative. You know, the way the country is being run, something must be done. So anyone that is calling for dissolution of Nigeria is not going out of its bounds. It's not out of place. In fact, that is a step in the right direction. Okay, let's go there. This is Diamond Hills. We speak the truth all the time, irrespective of whose us is God. That is what we do. That is what we are. And we are going to be like this on a continuous basis until we achieve the actualization of a sovereign Yoruba land. Okay. Whenever you excuse yourself, you are actually accusing yourself. Whenever you excuse yourself, you are actually accusing yourself. Whenever you see Lai Mohammed uttering nonsense, he is saying that to defend his pay slip, irrespective of how many souls that would die while defending his brain-dead paymaster. Some idiot will go for a decent personality until they get to the corridor of power. You will think they are decent. Until they get to the corridor of power, you will know how foolish, how much degree of folly is residing in their brain and on their minds. Look at Rotimi Amaechi telling us that he has to go to Niger to go and beg them so that they can allow him construct train for them. Tell me, where is the sense in that kind of a statement? Anyway, common sense is not common in the corridor of power in Nigeria. Look at the garrulous Minister of State for Labor and Jagbajantis, or Productivity, or Jagbajantis, I don't know which one you call it, speaking like a nincompoop just to defend the outrageous moron living in Aso Rock. You guys are fast believing their lies that it is we, the elite, living in diaspora, that are pushing for the breaking of Nigeria. Whereas it is the various misrule and nepotistic proclivity of the Fulani jihadists that is breaking Nigeria apart. Okay? It is not the elite that live in diaspora that are pushing for the breaking away of Nigeria. Whereas it is the various misrule and nepotistic proclivity of the Fulani jihadists that is breaking Nigeria apart. It is the nepotistic proclivity of Buhari and his handlers that is breaking Nigeria apart. I will play you a video of one of the few reasonable voices in Nigeria. After listening and watching this video, and you still think one Nigerian makes sense, then you have to sit right and ask yourself questions. Buhari and his palace jesters have accused everybody apart from themselves of destroying Nigeria. Look, guys, I will ask you just 3 questions. And after that, you should know where to apportion blame. You should know who to blame after Nigeria's imminent breakup in few months' time to come. Nothing can stop this breaking It is permanent, it is destined. In fact, it is the destiny of Nigeria to break into smaller units for easy administration and sovereignty to be respected. Number one question: who is empowering and encouraging the Fulani herdsmen, the Fulani kidnappers, and the Fulani bandits? Answer it. Then, number two, who has appointed only Fulani appointees in all the security apparatus in Nigeria? Who? Number three, who has failed woefully to deliver on all his electoral promises? Who has failed woefully to deliver on all his electoral promises? After answering these three questions, you will now know who is breaking Nigeria apart. I know you know the answers. I would never answer it for you. That is an assignment for you. That person is the one that has ruined Nigeria, not Twitter. Not Twitter as the nincompoop, what do you call him? Liar Mohammed is pretending to believe. It is not in Nnamdi Kanu. It is not Sunday Igboho as Lai Mohammed and all the other one Nigerian beggar are pressurizing you guys to believe. Please listen to this interview. After you might have listened to this interview, you will know where to apportion blame on why the dissolution of Nigeria is inevitable. There is a perfect inevitability of Nigeria's dissolution. It is inevitable. It is unavoidable. Nigeria can never continue. In fact, when you say Merry Christmas this year inside one Nigeria, then that means I don't believe it anyway. But let's see. We are working round the clock to make sure we end that catastrophe you guys call Nigeria. A country where graduates cannot get a job for 5 years, a country where the sick cannot get medical assistance, a country where the people are sleeping every night on an empty stomach, a country where there is no food, no good road, no money, no security, no life, no hope, no electricity, no peace. You can be sleeping at home and they will come and gun you down. They kill babies, they kill everybody, and you want that country to continue? On what basis? For what? Why must you save that catastrophe? Anyone that loves Nigeria will even push for it. Let everybody go on their own. Nigeria is not a country. Look, Buhari is tribalistic. Because we call Buhari a tribalist or ethnic jingoist, because in Nigeria there are many countries, there are many nations inside Nigeria. Assuming Fulani is a country on their own, then Buhari is a good statesman, is a good leader for the Fulanis. You understand it? Then let Yoruba find a good leader for themselves and govern themselves. Let the Igbo find a good leader for themselves and govern themselves. Let the Idoma or the South people find a good leader that will be patriotic, that will love them and do their biddings. What Buhari is doing is good if Nigeria belongs to the Fulanis alone. So, but now Nigeria belongs to different ethnic nationalities. That is why everything must be divided along national line. Yoruba is a nation. Igbo, they are nation. Biafra. South are people of the same dream, the same culture, the same orientation, the same life, almost the same language. So, let it be like this. So, Buhari is actually doing a good thing. The only thing that is wrong is that Nigeria does not belong to Fulanis alone. That is the mistake. So maybe he is thinking that all Nigerians are Fulanis. But now we have to put it to him. Nigeria does not belong to Fulani alone. Nigeria belongs to more than 250 ethnic nationalities. And Nigeria must be divided along this line so that Yorubas can find their own Buhari. Igbo can find their own Buhari. South can find their own Buhari. Middle belt people can find their own Buhari. Then Buhari can continue doing what he's doing with the people, with the Hausa Fulani up north. He can even go to Niger and bring the other one from Niger. He can bring the one from Chad, from South, from Central African Republic, from Mali. He can bring them from anywhere. Nobody will complain. You understand what I'm trying to say here? So let it be like this. Yoruba nation is not negotiable. To God be the glory. 10,000 sick Buhari cannot change the narratives. The trajectory can never be changed. Yoruba nation is now, and nothing can stop it. All right. We are working seriously for this. No matter whose us is God, enough is enough. What the Fulanis did to Yorubas in 1993, if a Yoruba man kill a Fulani man that has won an election, that has won a nationwide landslide victory in a presidential election, there won't be Nigerians today. So Yorubas have stomach enough. Anyone that says Yoruba have not endured enough, that person should go and jump into Babish and end his mysterious life. Can go and end his miserable and mysterious life in Babish. Anyone that says Yorubas have not endured enough. Why did the northern boys, why did they kill Adekunle Fajuyi? Why did they kill Enaoro? Why did they kill Delegiwa? Why did they murder all the Yoruba boys in a Jigbo plane crash? Why did Abacha humiliate General Ladipo Diya, General Adisa, General Lariwaju, Colonel Fadipe, and a lot of Yoruba officers? I saw a video, I saw Abdulkarim Adisa kneeling down before a Major Al-Mustafa. I saw it. It is really degrading. General Diya apologizing to that idiot, that illiterate Sani Abacha. Only in Nigeria will the financier be negotiating with the beggar before they can spend part of their money. Anyway, that has become a history. Oti di afiseyin ti egun fisho. Nigeria is it's as dead as dodo. It is finished. All right. So, if you are new on this platform, please subscribe to this channel and benefit from all the fresh informations we are dishing out on a daily basis. To God be the glory. So, happy viewing. Then we'll meet at the end of the video. All right. Bye.
While confirming that the social media platform Twitter had reached out to seek dialogue on issues leading to its indefinite suspension, the Nigerian government has gone a step further to blame the social networking service for the country's social upheavals. The latest salvo thrown at Twitter and its co-founder and CEO Jack Dorsey came from the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who accused them of vicarious liability for some of the losses recorded during the NSAS protest last October. For more on the latest twist in the narrative emerging from the federal government, which has blamed Twitter for what started out as a peaceful protest against police brutality, but was hijacked by vandals. We have with us Inibe Efiong, a human rights lawyer who, alongside other lawyers, offered free counsel to NSAS protesters. Welcome to the show, Inibe. Good to have you again on the program.
Good morning, Dr. Bati. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Well, I see you are in uniform. The courts are back.
Yes, I'll be going to court from here.
You must be happy that the courts have returned to business after that 64-day strike by judicial workers. But let's start with Twitter. We'll come to that later. Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, says that Jack Dorsey is vicariously liable for the destruction of government properties and wanton violence during the NSAS protests in October last year. Now, what does that really mean in real terms? What options are available to the Nigerian government? Take Jack Dorsey to court, and do you share the view in terms of the vicarious liability that Alhaji Mohammed, who himself is a lawyer, talks about?
Thank you. Well, what it simply means is that the minister has basically informed Nigerians that he has changed the designation of his office from Minister of Information and Culture to Minister of Comedy and Entertainment. Because when you have a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria going publicly to say that Jack, the founder and CEO of Twitter, is vicariously liable for what he claimed was carnage and destruction during the NSAS protests, it really calls to question whether really this is a government that is serious about anything. To begin with, the NSAS movement, the NSAS protests, was a natural response to state collapse or to state failure, which is the failure of the Nigerian state, the failure of the government to hold police accountable. We wouldn't have had NSAS if the Buhari regime, when they came to power in 2015, had taken the issue of police brutality, the issue of extrajudicial killing of Nigerians by the police, the culture of corruption that has pervaded the police over the years seriously. We haven't seen any serious reform since this government came to power, except for the passage of the new Police Act. But in terms of discipline, in terms of restoration of credibility in the police, in terms of discipline of officers who are killing Nigerians and extorting Nigerians, this government has not done anything serious. So when Nigerian youth went out to demand NSAS, what they were saying is that the group that was supposed to protect citizens from armed robbers had basically become a murderous gang, engaging in wanton extrajudicial killing. This was what the NSAS protest was about. And we must constantly remind those who are seeking to misinform Nigerians about what led to that protest. But to go to the question, I do not understand the basis for the very hilarious, comments that the minister has made. To begin with, Twitter did not in any way contribute to the violence that took place or the burning and the killing that took place during the NSAS protests. At the Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry alone, it has been confirmed that not less than 99 persons were extrajudicially killed during that protest, including at least three at the Lekki toll gate. Is it telling me that it is Jack that caused the killing of those persons? We also had properties that were burnt. I do not understand what he means by vicarious liability or how Twitter contributed to what took place. The reality is that the social media has become a veritable tool for civic engagement, not only in Nigeria and Africa, but globally. Look at the Black Lives Matter movement in the United States. It has been brought to the fore because the social media, including Twitter, has been used to galvanize, civic and citizen to demand an end to the killing of blacks by the police in the US. So will we now say that because there are some pockets and skirmishes of violence during Black Lives Matter protests that we should hold Twitter responsible? Lai Mohammed is trying to distract Nigerians from the embarrassing failure of this regime, from the failure of this regime to provide leadership, from the killings that are going on daily in this country, from the fact that our naira has become worthless, from the fact that Nigeria has become the poverty capital of the world. So when he makes, these outlandish comments, what he's saying is that do not focus on the basics, do not focus on the substance, dwell on the frivolities. That is what this is about. Twitter has not in any way contributed to the malaise that has characterized our national life in the last 6 years. Twitter is not responsible for the killing by the herdsmen. Twitter is not responsible for what is going on in this country. So when they try to shift attention from their failures, from their incompetence, to now begin to blame foreigners for what is going on in the country. Really, as I said, it calls to question whether this is a regime that is really serious about anything.
Well, Mr. Effiong, wow. Okay, responsibility being laid at the feet of Jack Dorsey by the minister, as tenuous as that link clearly is, does make it quite clear that the federal government is becoming more and more entrenched in their position with regards to the Twitter suspension. It's obvious that it's not going to go away overnight. I'd like your comments on that and where this could possibly be headed.
My worry as a citizen is that before our very own eyes, we are seeing a sustained shrinking of the civic space. We are seeing this, the democratic space being decimated. We are seeing the destruction of the little gain that we have made in our democratic process since 1999. When you have a regime that came to power, largely because of the power of the social media, Buhari would possibly not be the president today, but for the social media. The APC would not be in government today, but for the social media. Lai Mohammed would not be a minister today, but for the social media. What is the antecedents of these people? When they were in the opposition, they used the same platform to demonize the Jonathan administration. They saw nothing good in that administration. They constantly opposed any attempt to shrink the civic space, to attack the media and so on. But what did they do? They came to power. They now destroyed the bridge that they used to climb to that power. So when you see them saying they are suspending Twitter, they are banning Twitter, it brings to question whether this is really a civilian administration or a military dictatorship disguised as a democracy. How can you say you are suspending a platform that offers millions of Nigerians an opportunity to express themselves, that gives youths, young people, influencers, an opportunity to be self-employed? Can you imagine the rippling effect of this scandalous decision on young persons that depend on Twitter for survival? Can you imagine the effect that this has had on the economy that is already in a state of comatose? Can you imagine the perception of the international community about us as a country? So these people should begin to look at themselves critically. You cannot be saying that, you are strengthening your position when Nigerians are the ones that are losing. And you see the funny part. They make this, funny comparison that China has also limited Twitter, the same with Russia, the same with North Korea. Look at those countries. One thing is peculiar about those countries. These are basically one-party states. These are not states that allow for democracy that Buhari promised Nigerians. You cannot be comparing China with Nigeria, a state that is basically a communist state, that President Xi can be in power for life, with a country that pretends to be a democracy. So what we are saying is that the ban on Twitter is not about Nnamdi Kanu. It is not about IPOP. It is not about Eastern Security Network. It is not even about fake news. It is about a regime that is becoming increasingly tolerant of dissent. And what is the evidence that you can see? Protesters who are protesting peacefully, you see the clampdown by the police, you see citizens being attacked, you see media houses being shut down, and now, as if that was not enough, they brought the so-called social media bill. Nigerians wrongly rejected it. But again, they are now coming through the back door, through what they seek to do by amending the National Broadcasting Commission Act, to now give them the power that they had lost at the public hearing on the social media bill. Why is the government focusing on the social media? Why are they not paying attention to education? How come that 6 years after President Buhari came to power, he has not built a single world-class hospital that he can treat himself? He's still embarking on medical tourism. These are the issues. These are the problems that are bedeviling us as a country. And they are not willing to address them. Look at the killings that are going on daily in this country. Nobody is paying attention. The government is not interested. They are not paying attention to the issues that matter. They just do not want people to talk. They just do not want a platform where citizens can engage. And it is unfortunate that this is happening at the National Assembly. He's tolerating it. Because I don't understand, for example, why the House of Reps under the Speaker, had to say that they want to wait for 10 days to determine whether there was a legal basis for the so-called ban or not. The fact that Lai Mohammed went to the Parliament to say that the NBC should be given power to regulate online media is an admission against interest, as we lawyers will say. to the fact that ab initio, from the word go, they knew that this ban was unconstitutional. They knew that by virtue of Section 39 of the Constitution, you cannot, I say you cannot wake up and say you are suspending Twitter, because Twitter is the platform, it is a medium through which citizens express themselves. So this was an illegality. It continues to be an illegality.
Well, Inebehe, I mean, you cited the example of some countries that you say are one-party states, and you focus more on China. But how about India? India has multi-party democracy. In February 2021, India introduced what he called Intermediary Guidelines 2021, and it took effect on the 26th of May 2021 to regulate content by high-tech companies, specifically Facebook, WhatsApp, and this same Twitter, right? And, the argument by India is that, look, it needs to control content, ensure national security, and make sure that nobody uses high-tech to sabotage the country. Similar argument with that of Nigeria. Are you saying, in principle, that a country cannot subject an international platform to its own national laws? Are you saying that in the interest of national security, which is part of the argument by Alhaji Lai Mohammed, high-tech platforms, microblogging platforms can just be allowed as they wish? Where do we draw the balance?
Now let me highlight 2 points on India. India under President Modi has become increasingly conservative. It has become a right, under Modi, India has become a right-wing regime, a right-wing administration under President Modi. But you have also made the point, admittedly, that before they took these steps, they had put in place certain legislative measures. But in the case of Nigeria, there is no law today that empowers this kind of arbitrary decision to be taken. The question is social media in Nigeria unregulated? My answer is no, because we already have, for example, the Cyber Crimes Act of 2015 that to some extent has largely regulated social media content. Nobody can tell me that the cyberspace is not regulated. The cyberspace in Nigeria is already regulated. The social media is already regulated. And I dare say that the social media itself is a self-regulating platform. And let me explain that. If I tweet something this morning, right now, somebody will come under that tweet to challenge me, to demand for proof, to demand that I substantiate it. That is unlike the conventional media, like the print media, where you can, do little or nothing about what is published. But on social media, every user is an ombudsman. Every user is a regulator. So when they make these comments, and let me also say this, Twitter, for example, has community standards. They have cited the case of Nnamdi Kanu. If Nnamdi Kanu tweets, a statement that is found to be incendiary, that is found to be violent, if you report that tweet, or people report that tweet, I can assure you that Twitter will take it down. Twitter has deactivated several accounts of Nigerians. Twitter has suspended several accounts. Twitter has flagged and deleted several tweets. This is not about fake news. This is not about regulation per se. This is about the fact that the tweet of the president was deleted. This is about the fact that we have a president, we have a government whose fragile ego cannot tolerate the fact that the tweet of the president was deleted. We cannot separate the fact that that tweet that some Nigerians have described as genocidal, that they reported to Twitter was taken down, is the reason for this action. So when they say, we want to subject it to national law, and let me also point out the hypocrisy. While the government is claiming that Twitter is not registered in the country, they have now gone to an Indian app called Go, K-W-O. They have opened an account called Government of Nigeria, or Government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, including appointees of this regime. The question is that app registered in Nigeria? The answer is no. Do they have an office in Nigeria? Again, the answer is no. You see the double standard, you see the hypocrisy. So this was a vindictive action that was meant to punish Twitter and Nigerians because the president tweeted something that he should never have tweeted. So Dr. Bati, it is not about regulation. It is not about subjecting Twitter to the laws of Nigeria, because Twitter itself is not an entity in Nigeria. You cannot say that Twitter cannot operate in Nigeria except they register in Nigeria, because this is a platform that operates virtually. And the president has a Twitter account with millions of followers. If the president is saying, Lai Mohammed has an account, the Federal Minister of Information has an account on Twitter, they use the same account to announce the suspension of Twitter. What can be more embarrassing? What can be more scandalous? If they knew that Twitter has no right to operate in Nigeria, why is Buhari having a Twitter account? Why is Malami having a Twitter account? Why is Lai Mohammed having a Twitter account? They shouldn't have opened accounts on Twitter. They have been in power for 6 years. This issue was not raised until the president's tweet was deleted. So let Nigerians not be mistaken. This is not a case of controlling an international corporation. This is about denying Nigerian freedom of speech, as we have seen in the last 6 years. Look at what is happening. I have cited the example. Look at the June 12 protests. Protesters were attacked despite being peaceful. So it is not really about regulation. It is just about a regime that is intolerant, a regime that is determined to ensure that the democratic space is totally shrinked.
Right, I have 2 questions for you, Mr. Effiong. Can you take us through the 9 prayers of the suit that you've instituted against the government with regards to the Twitter ban? You were right off the blocks. As the strike was called off, you went to court and filed this suit. And my second question for you, if you were counsel to Jack Dorsey or to Twitter, which you never know, you might end up being, how would you advise them to conduct themselves now that they've had this slap on the wrist by the Nigerian government?
On the first, well, I'll be a little conservative. The matter is before the court. I've gone to court to seek redress, to demand that this so-called ban be nullified, be set aside, and to also challenge their power to even say they are suspending, because Section 39 of the Constitution is clear that citizens have the right to freedom of expression, including freedom to receive information and impart ideas. I am quoting this verbatim. And that section doesn't end. It says, it shall be without interference. Without interference. If they are saying they now want to interfere, they must amend the Constitution first. Or they must even come out and say, no, we are tired of the Constitution. We want to bring back Decree 4. Let us suspend the Constitution. Let the pretense stop. But as long as the president held the Constitution and the Quran and swore to uphold the Constitution, they must adhere to the principle of fundamental rights. You cannot limit fundamental rights except by an act of parliament, by a written law. Not only a written law. Section 45 and Section 39 says that law must be reasonably justifiable in a democratic society. Reasonably justifiable. As at the time this so-called ban was implemented, which law as at today empowers the government to take that kind of action? As a lawyer, I am not aware. As a citizen, I am not aware. So I have gone to court to seek redress. Let the court determine the merits of the action. But what will be my advice to Twitter? Twitter is already talking to the Nigerian government. But one thing I will advise is that they must not compromise on the fundamentals, which is that on no account should Twitter allow itself to, be coerced into compromising the right of Nigerians to use that platform to express themselves. Because they are not going to stop with Twitter. They will also go after Facebook. They will go after WhatsApp. They will go after all other platforms that gives us Nigerians the power and the opportunity to express ourselves. So Twitter has to be firm on the principles of free speech. However, I also agree that it is important for them to have some form of communication. If, like Mohammed, for example, is saying that Nnamdi Kanu put out a tweet and they had officially reported to Twitter, let him make the evidence public so that Twitter can also come out to say, this is why we did not delete this tweet. As of today, Lai Mohammed has not presented any modicum of evidence, not even one piece of evidence to show that there was a particular tweet that the government frowned at and officially reported and nothing was done. In the case of India, that you cited, Dr. Patti, the Indian government has specifically requested that certain accounts be taken down, and they provided the evidence. I have not seen the evidence of that in this country. What is going on is continuation of the impunity that has pervaded this country in the last 6 years. And we should never sit down to dialogue about democracy. It is either they give us a democratic country, it is either we have a democratic country based on the rule of law, or the rulers based on the rule of might and dictatorship. We cannot be in between. We cannot be compromising on our rights. We cannot be compromising on democracy, because this is what APC promised Nigerians. They did not tell us as part of their manifesto that they were going to regulate the social media. They didn't. Lai Mohammed did not. Look at the statements he made as spokesperson of the Action Congress and even spokesperson of the APC. Can you imagine if somebody in opposition speaks today the way Lai Mohammed used to speak? The same Lai Mohammed even opposed the proscription of Boko Haram. But this government proscribed IPOB. And now they are saying it is because of IPOB, it is because of Nnamdi Kanu. Why did they have to declare and designate IPOB as a terrorist organization? They started peacefully. The government mismanaged the crisis, the same way they have mismanaged the economy, the same way they have mismanaged security, the same way they have mismanaged infrastructure, the same way they have mismanaged everything in this country. They mismanaged the IPOB crisis and allow it to deteriorate, because this is a government that believes in violence as an official policy. They don't believe in peaceful engagement. When you protest peacefully, they kill you. When you protest peacefully, they attack you. They deploy the military against you. So when these people started what they call Eastern Security Network, it was because the government had said, you cannot be talking peacefully. We don't listen to peaceful people. We only want to dialogue with bandits. We only want to give amnesty to Boko Haram. We only listen to those that resort to violence. If IPOB issue was properly managed, why did the military have to invade the home of Nnamdi Kanu? Why did they have to attack his parents? Why can't we be truthful to ourselves as a nation? How come there are dozens of IPOB members that were killed? No police officer, no military officer was punished. Look at the killing at the toll gate. Nobody has been sanctioned. Look at the killing of hundreds of child. Nobody has been penalized in this country. And we continue to demand peace. We continue to talk about unity. We cannot have peace and unity on the bedrock of injustice. We cannot have peace without justice. When you don't have justice in a country, violence is inevitable. That is what these examples I have cited shows. So what we should be talking about is accountability. What we should be talking about is respect for the rule of law. Except there is respect for the rule of law, you cannot really stop what is going on across the country. That is the truth. And unfortunately for us, it does appear that there is no way out as far as this presidency is still in office.
Yes, Tundu asked you the question, what advice will you give to Twitter? And if I heard you correctly, you were saying Twitter should insist on free speech. But there are specifics that the Nigerian government is asking for. The Nigerian government wants Twitter to open an office in Nigeria. Twitter has set up an office, its African headquarters in Ghana. Do you object to Twitter setting up an office in Nigeria? That's one. Two, Twitter, in some other parts of the world, is a registered company. In some parts of Europe, in fact, Twitter pays taxes. The Nigerian government wants Twitter to operate as a business in Nigeria and pay taxes. Do you also have an objection to that? And then the third leg of it is the NBC Act, Section 2. There was a public hearing on it yesterday by the House Committee on Information, and civil society representatives were there. Two issues came up. The Ministry of Information wants that Section 2 amended to include online platforms, social media content. But civil society groups like the Center for Media Law and Advocacy, like the Center for Media and Society, like the International Press Center, they were arguing that one, the NBC should be an independent body and that the appointment of its board should be reviewed by the National Assembly so as to reduce the influence of the Minister of Information on that particular body and to make it independent. What do we say to all of this? Because we need clarity on specific issues that have been raised.
Just to clarify, the point I made was that Twitter must insist, I repeat, insist on the fundamentals. On no account, and I hope so, should Jack and Twitter compromise the rights of Nigerians to use that platform to express themselves. This attempt at censorship has to be resisted. This resurrection of the ghost of Decree 4 must be frontally resisted. Should Twitter have cited their office in Nigeria, I think it would have been a wrong business decision. What they have now done has vindicated their decision to go to Ghana. What was even the reason that they gave? They said Ghana promotes free speech. Dr. Bati, can you imagine for a second if Twitter had an office in Nigeria? Is it not obvious that the State Security Service or even the military and the police would have raided that office, arrested their employees, and shut it down? That is what they would have done. We have seen them do it in other instances. So when they decided to go to Ghana, they had looked at the environment, and I cannot fault them on that. It is not about patriotism. It is about the truth. Because if we are truly patriotic, we should be truthful to ourselves as a country. Now, am I opposed to Twitter paying some form of tax to the government? We have tax laws in Nigeria. We have legislative, mechanisms that govern taxation. I would like to know which of these laws or which of these regulations envisages the kind of taxation that they are talking about. I would like to know, is it the income tax they are talking about? Is it value-added tax? Which of the tax are they asking Twitter to pay? Because in those countries that we are talking about, for example, if you look at Twitter, for example, in the country, in the US or Europe, for example, they have certain frameworks, certain legislative frameworks that makes it possible to find Twitter or bring them under some form of, regulation. But as I said, in Nigeria, we don't even have those legislative instruments or mechanisms in place. You cannot start regulation through sanction. You can only start regulation by putting in place the necessary framework. And I'm saying this morning that those frameworks in Nigeria do not exist. Now, can they do that through the NBC Act, Section 2? My answer is no. One, because that would be dishonest. That would be deceitful. They brought the social media bill. We kill it as Nigerians, as civil society at the public hearing. They could not present a stronger argument. Now they want to say, we want to come in through the NBC Act. I do not think that is how to run a government. I do not believe that is the right course of action. Because as I said, Dr. Bati, in these countries that we keep referring to, what is their index in terms of development, in terms of GDP, in terms of employment? You have to look at it objectively. What can we point at today and say that in the last 6 years, this is one outstanding achievement of this government? Because before you even begin to attack these platforms, you must show that you are a responsible government. And why should we even trust them to regulate these platforms? When we have seen how they have abused the NBC, how they have used the NBC in a partisan manner to shut down media houses. Can you imagine NBC that said that broadcast stations should deactivate their Twitter accounts? They don't even have the power to do that as at today, Dr. Bati. And they are taking that kind of erratic decision. Imagine what they would do if you don't give them the power. That is why eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. If these people have shown that they can manipulate the NBC, they can manipulate the SSS, they can manipulate INEC, they can use the police the way they like, they can abuse all state institutions, why should we trust them? Why should we believe that they are going to be fair if they now amend the NBC Act to give them power to do what they are seeking to do? The answer is that we cannot trust them because this government does not have credibility in the eyes of most Nigerians. That is the truth. So if the government lacks the credibility to address issues, to be honest in their dealings, and they're now saying we want to regulate social media, your guess is as good as mine. Because what they are going to do eventually is that they won't even allow anybody to talk again. Look at what they have done to the right to protest. We have seen Buhari protest. Buhari protested and was tear gas. They went to court in the case of IGP and ANPP. The court said you don't need police permit to protest. You cannot tear gas people for protesting. But despite all the judgments we have obtained, despite all the decisions of courts that have affirmed the rights of Nigerians to protest, Nigerians are still being tear gas, Nigerians are still being shot, Nigerians are still being arrested for simply protesting. Wow. And you are saying, let us give them power to regulate social media. I would never be part of that.
Inebe, there was something you said earlier when you referred to the Eastern Security Network. I hope you are not justifying violence by any group inside Nigeria, because one of the bases for the objection of the federal government to Twitter is that Twitter has become a platform inside Nigeria for a particular separatist movement within the country. And then you were, waxing lyrical about the Eastern Security Network, the ESN, the militant wing of the IPOB. If you could just clarify your position on that before we move on.
I totally oppose. I totally deprecate and condemn unreservedly the killing of policemen, the burning of police stations, the carnage that is going on in the East. I am not sympathetic to IPOB. I don't believe in IPOB. I don't subscribe to IPOB. I am not a follower of Nnamdi Kanu. I have never been. I have always been critical of what he's fighting for. I do not believe in Biafra. I also do not believe in splitting Nigeria, even though I totally oppose the fraudulent one Nigeria they are talking about, because the united Nigeria that I want must be based on justice, must be based on rule of law. But I do not believe that we should divide the country. At the same time, we cannot criminalize what ordinarily should be an exercise of the right to self-determination. Eastern Security Network, whatever they are doing, I do not endorse it. I totally condemn it. But the point I am making, Dr. Bati, is that we should not be addressing these matters on the surface. Let us go to the roots. What led to the Eastern Security Network? Did Nnamdi Kanu just start with this group? They started by marching, carrying flag, going on the street, protesting. What was the response of the Nigerian state? What was the response of the Buhari regime? They deployed Operation Python dance. The Python was dancing on the lives of the people of the Saudis. People were being killed. People were being slaughtered. They were being attacked. They were not even allowed to protest, even when they charged him for treasonable felony. Even when they had filed charges before Justice Nyako at the Federal High Court in Abuja. The military, in a so-called democracy, invaded the house of Nnamdi Kanu, desecrated the palace of his father, who was a traditional ruler. You cannot have that in a decent country. So as we condemn the killing of policemen, the burning of police, the burn of stations and INEC offices, we must admit that this regime, this government, takes responsibility for the resort to violence by the group known as Eastern Security Network. If we are not truthful about these things, Dr. Bassi, we will continue to see history repeat itself. Boko Haram started when Mohammed Yusuf was extrajudicially killed. Have we learned any lesson as a country? The answer is no. We are still resorting to primitive, draconian ways of responding to civic agitation. When people are protesting, you engage them, you talk to them. That is why you say you are running a democracy. You don't kill them. You don't deny them of the right to protest. But we keep saying IPOB, and what the president said, he will speak to them in the language that they understand. These people have not recovered. The people of Eastern Nigeria, the Igbos in particular, they are still going through the agony of the civil war. And you are saying you treat them in the language they understand? What is the language of the civil war?
But there's an argument, and I'd like your comments on that argument, that the president's remarks were taken out of context. Those he was referring to were the armed groups who have forgotten the pains of the Southeast during the Civil War. The armed groups who are going around torching Nigerian infrastructure belongs to us, INEC infrastructure, for our democracy. That comment was made to a specific cadre of criminals. So those who leapt to their defense were wrong-footed, including Twitter, who did not take time to appreciate the broader context of that remark before deleting the tweet. Now, should Twitter have approached the Nigerian government, because this is a sovereign state, before deleting that tweet? I want your take on that. And also the general global move towards social media regulation. The US government, the US House of Representatives actually has 4 bills right now in the offing to restrain social media giants about utilizing user data, buying other platforms. I grant you, none of them is trying to restrain or censor the actual posts that individuals make. But there is a general sense that social media giants are too big for their britches. Your comments?
Do you know that as I speak today, Nigeria does not have a data protection law, embarrassingly enough. Because you are citing the example, and that is why I'm saying, when we make these comparisons, we must look at the peculiarity of these countries. There is no single one data protection law in Nigeria today, not even one. Not even one that protects the data of Nigerians. We don't have. We do not have. Now, you make, the point that the president's comment was taken out of context. The only person or persons who took the president's comment out of context is the president and Lai Mohammed. Nigerians understood what he said. I personally understood what he said. The context in which he said it was clear. He didn't just stop at that. He didn't say he was referring to the armed groups. No. When you look at it objectively, when you look at it in context, because he said that they have businesses all over the country. Is it IPOB that has businesses all over the country? Does IPOB have business in Kano, in Sokoto, in Zamfara, in Benue, in Kwara, in Ogun, in Cross River? They don't. Does the Eastern Security Network have businesses all over the country? The answer is no. Buhari was referring to the Igbos. We can admit it. We can pretend about it. His body language has been clear. He started by saying you cannot treat 93 and 5% equally. We have seen how he has marginalized the Igbos. No Igbo is represented in the National Security Council. Look at the nepotism. So when we are saying his comment was taken out of context, are we also saying that his nepotistic appointments, his clearly sectional appointments are also taken out of context? Because this is a president that has a pedigree, a shameful pedigree, an unfortunate pedigree of favoring a section of the country that has polarized this country as never before. So that is not a precedent that you will tell me spoke at, that people are taking him out of context. He was clear on what he meant. In any event, we have had the so-called herdsmen or the so-called armed Fulani herdsmen committing killing people across the country from the north to the south. Has he spoken to them? Because in your interview with him, he made reference to what Governor Tom said, that the Governor Tom said is Fulani and that he cannot deny it. Not all Fulanis are criminals. But as Buhari spoken to his kinsmen, the ones that are criminals, the ones that are armed, in the language that they understand, the answer is no. In what language has he been speaking to them? Language of encouragement, language of endorsement, ruga, settlement, grazing roads, and so on and so forth. Despite that governors have rejected these divisive policies, Buhari is still trying to force it on the throat of Nigerians. He has not addressed the killings by the herdsmen. Has he spoken to bandits in the language that they understand for the last 6 years? The answer is no. Rather, Gumi is advocating amnesty. School students are being kidnapped. Just yesterday, people were praying in Zaria against kidnapping. Buhari has not spoken to kidnappers in the northeast, the northwest, in the language that they understand. He has also not spoken to Boko Haram and ISWAP in the language that they understand. But suddenly, he now knows the language that IPOP will understand. I do not think that is how to run a country whose unity you are willing to kill for. I do not think how to run a country that is...
Let's move on from this Twitter and this political talk. Can you talk briefly about the Judicial Staff Union of Nigeria strike and this memorandum of action that state governors claim they have reached with both JUSON and the Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigeria? Since you are going straight to the court from here.
Yes. One thing I must give credit, or some form of credit to Buhari is that for whether he was honest or not, whether he's serious or not, he introduced Executive Order 10, which was not necessary because the Constitution is already clear. Section 81 is clear, Section 167 is clear, Section 121 is clear, to the fact that all money standing to the credit of the judiciary shall be paid directly to the National Judicial Council for disbursement to heads of courts. So I am happy about the fact that this strike took place. I totally support it, even though I have suffered personally, my clients have suffered. Lawyers have suffered on account of the strike, but it was a sacrifice that needed to be made. Because governors have become emperors in this country. Governors have turned the other tiers of government into, paraphernalia of the executive. That chief judges will have to be going to literally kneel before governors to beg for subvention, to beg for approval of funds, to do very basic things is unacceptable. We cannot have a situation where no House of Assembly, I dare say out of the 36 in the country, can hold any governor in this country accountable. Not even one. Not Lagos, not Akwa Ibom, not Zamfara. No state House of Assembly can hold any governor accountable. Why? Partly because they are not independent. Partly because of lack of autonomy. So this strike was necessary. Look at the state of our judiciary. Cases are piling up. For years, Dr. Bati, for years, cases are piling up. I have a client who just passed on in January, whose case at the Supreme Court has been pending for almost over 2 decades. The man died without getting justice. This is what has become the fate of most Nigerians, partly because the judiciary is underfunded. Judges are still writing with long hands. Many of them don't have stenographers. They don't have judicial assistants. The judges are not enough. Governors have basically destroyed the other arms of government. That is why the strike by parliamentary workers, the strike by judicial workers was necessary. I am only hoping, and I say hoping, that these governors will respect the agreement that they reach. Because the way it is going, it appears that these governors have assumed the power of omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscience unto themselves. They don't believe in being held accountable. They have basically brought the judiciary under subjugation. If you know what some chief judges are going through, you will weep for the judiciary. You will weep for the houses of assembly. Because they are not independent. So this is an issue that needed to be addressed. And I hope that they will respect this agreement that I have said. And I hope that the judiciary on their part will also assert its independence, will also assert its authority, because the descent into impunity, the continued destruction of our democratic and civic space would not have gotten this bad if Parliament and the judiciary had acted totally the way they are supposed to do.
Thank you, Mr. Effiong. You'll recall a time in this country when state high courts in a particular state were shut down for a year at the governor's whim. Goodness. Thank you for joining us this morning.